Picture this. You walk into a saloon, and the bartender doesn't ask for your drink order. He asks for your gun. Every weapon gets checked at the door, tagged with a number, stored behind the bar. This wasn't Hollywood fiction. This was the real Wild West, and it destroys everything you thought you knew. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm showing you 25 features of actual frontier towns that have completely vanished from American life. Some will surprise you. Others will make you question why we ever got rid of them. And number 7, that one's going to blow your mind. Let's get into it. The Wild West wasn't what you see in the movies. Real frontier towns were stranger, more innovative, and way more organized than Hollywood ever showed you. These towns had to invent civilization from scratch, solving problems that had never existed before. What they created was sometimes brilliant, sometimes brutal, and always fascinating. By the end of this video, the Wild West you thought you knew will be gone. And honestly, the truth is so much better. Feature 1. Mandatory gun check stations. Let's destroy the first myth right now. The lawless Wild West never existed. When you rode into towns like Dodge City, Tombstone, or Deadwood, you had to surrender your firearms. Not a suggestion, the law. You'd hand over your weapons at the marshal's office, the saloon, or designated checkpoints, and you'd get a brass token with a number. Want your gun back? Show your token when you leave town. The famous shootout at the OK Corral happened because the Clanton gang refused to check their weapons. The Earp brothers weren't looking for a fight. They were enforcing the town's gun ordinance. These checkpoints were simple wooden booths with a deputy inside, and the system worked. Towns with strict gun checks had far fewer shootings than their reputation suggests. The Wild West had better gun control than modern America. Think about that for a second. Feature 2. Wooden boardwalks with traffic laws. Every Western shows those wooden sidewalks, but they never show you the rules. These weren't just platforms. They were 6 to 8 feet wide traffic systems with serious etiquette. Women always had right-of-way. Always. Men would step into the muddy street to let a lady pass, no matter who they were. Many towns had boardwalk speed limits. No running, no horses allowed. Some even banned dogs during business hours. And here's what's interesting. Shop owners were responsible for the section in front of their business. Every spring, you'd see the whole town rebuilding their boardwalks, replacing rotted planks, competing to have the nicest section. It was like a neighborhood arms race, but with wood and civic pride. Feature 3. Public hitching post networks. Imagine if every parking spot in your city was managed by a local business, and you had to know complex social rules about where you could leave your car. That was hitching posts. Every business had posts out front, and there was an unwritten code about their use. The posts closest to the saloon doors, those were for regulars only. A stranger who tied up at the wrong post could start a fight. Some businesses charged for hitching. Others offered it free but expected you to shop. Young boys worked as hitching post attendants, watching your horse for a nickel. They'd water it, brush it, make sure nobody messed with your gear. This was their hustle, and they took it seriously. Feature 4. Communal water troughs as social centers. The water trough wasn't just for horses. It was the town's information hub, the original social media. Everyone had to stop there. Your horse needed water, you needed to fill your canteen, and while you waited, you talked. This is where news spread, deals were made, and gossip traveled. Troughs were strategically placed at intersections, and towns competed to have the fanciest ones. Some were carved from single blocks of stone. Others had fountains, and there were strict rules. Horses drank from one end, people filled containers from the other. Break that rule, and you'd get a reputation as an ignorant greenhorn faster than you could blink. Feature 5. Town criers on scheduled routes. No newspapers delivered to your door. No internet, no phones. Just a man walking set routes at exact times, shouting news at the top of his lungs. 7 in the morning, telegraph news. Noon, business announcements. 6 in the evening, social events and town meetings. These weren't random loud guys. They were appointed officials, sometimes paid by the town, sometimes by businesses. They had incredible memories and voices that could carry 3 blocks. A good town crier could make a lost dog sound like a murder mystery, and a new shipment at the general store sound like the president was visiting. They were celebrities, and everyone set their daily schedules by their rounds. Feature 6. Barber-dentist combination shops. Now this is where it gets dark. The barber's chair wasn't just for haircuts. It was for tooth extractions, minor surgery, and bloodletting. You'd sit in the same chair where someone just had a molar yanked and get a shave. The tools hung on the same wall. Scissors, razors, forceps, bone saws. workers, all together. But these men weren't butchers. They were skilled because they had to be. A bad tooth extraction could kill you from infection within days. That red and white barber pole you still see today? The red represents blood, white represents bandages. It's a medical symbol. And these shops had window displays showing off extracted teeth arranged in decorative patterns. The more teeth displayed, the more experienced the barber. It was their credential wall. Imagine walking past that today. Feature 7. Legal opium dens on Main Street. Here's the one that's going to shock you. Nearly every Wild West town had legal opium dens. Not hidden, not underground, legitimate businesses with signs advertising their services. You'd see painted advertisements. Chinese medicine, Oriental relaxation, opium parlor. The Chinese immigrants who built the railroads brought opium culture with them, and it spread fast. But here's what's wild. These weren't just for Chinese workers. Cowboys, businessmen, even lawmen used them. The dens were usually in the back of laundries or restaurants, with dozens of wooden bunks, dim lighting, and the sweet, sticky smell of opium smoke. You'd pay your fee, lie down, and an attendant would prepare your pipe. It was social, like going to a bar. People went in groups, talked, dreamed, and slept it off. Towns didn't ban opium until the early 1900s. For decades, it was just part of frontier life, completely legal and out in the open. Feature 8. Dance halls separate from saloons. Saloons were for drinking. Dance halls were for dancing. Never confuse the two. Dance halls were legitimate entertainment venues where men paid 10 cents per dance and the dance lasted exactly one song. The women who worked there were dance hall girls, not saloon girls, and the distinction mattered to everyone. These halls had bouncers who enforced strict rules. No drinking on the dance floor, no inappropriate touching, no propositions. Break the rules, you're thrown out permanently. The halls were beautifully decorated with chandeliers, mirrors, and polished floors. Some towns had multiple dance halls competing for business, each with their own house band. Saturday nights, you'd hear music echoing from 3 different directions. It was the entertainment industry of its time, carefully managed and surprisingly respectable. Feature 9. Stagecoach stations with military timing. The stagecoach from Denver arrives at 2:15, not 2 to 10, not 2:20, exactly 2:15. Stagecoach stations ran with precision that would impress modern airlines. Every station had a large clock visible from the street, and schedules were absolute. Drivers who were late got fined. Stations that caused delays lost contracts. The entire town would set their watches by stagecoach arrivals. These stations also served as hotels, restaurants, and social gathering points. You could track someone's travel by knowing which stations they'd stop at. Miss someone at one station? Ride hard to the next. The whole system was a marvel of coordination in an era with no phones, no radios, nothing but human discipline and pocket watches. Feature 10. Mandatory bathhouses with schedules. Most people didn't have private baths. They used public bathhouses, and these places ran on strict schedules. Monday and Thursday, men. Tuesday and Friday, women. Wednesday, children. Saturday, anyone. Sunday, closed for cleaning. You'd pay your quarter, get a towel and a sliver of soap, and you'd have exactly 30 minutes. An attendant would knock when your time was up. Here's the part nobody talks about. The water was reused throughout the day, getting progressively dirtier. First bathers in the morning paid premium prices for clean water. Last bathers at night got a discount for murky water that 20 people had already used. And every bathhouse had a strict policy. Show up drunk, you'd be turned away. Too many men had passed out and drowned in the tubs. Feature 11. Telegraph offices as entertainment centers. The telegraph office wasn't just for sending messages. It was where people gathered to hear news from the outside world. Operators would post news bulletins in the window, and crowds would gather to read them. Election results, train schedules, reports from other towns, even serialized stories sent in Morse code installments. Some operators were natural showmen. They'd transcribe incoming messages out loud, adding drama and suspense. A message about conflicts would be read like a thriller. A message about gold strikes would be announced like lottery results. Towns with entertaining telegraph operators became social hubs. People would hang around just to hear the latest news delivered with theatrical flair. It was live entertainment and news combined. Feature 12. Livery stables with human accommodations. Your horse slept better than you did. Livery stables offered premium boarding with grooming, feeding, and veterinary care for horses. But here's the twist. Many had human accommodations above the stables. You could rent a bunk in the hayloft for a fraction of hotel prices. It was loud, it smelled like horses, and you'd wake up covered in hay dust. But it was cheap and relatively safe. The stable hands kept watch all night to prevent horse theft, which meant you had security. Some traveling salesmen actually preferred the livery loft to fancy hotels. You knew what you were getting. No frills, but honest accommodations. In frontier hotels, you might wake up robbed, or worse. Feature 13. Town bells controlling daily life. Every town had a central bell, and it dictated the rhythm of life. 6 a.m., wake up. Noon, lunch. 6 p.m., end of work. But the bell also signaled emergencies with different patterns. Rapid ringing meant fire. Slow, repeated rings meant death. Irregular ringing meant attack or danger. Everyone within earshot had to respond to emergency bells. It was the law. Ignore the bell during an emergency, face consequences. The bell ringer was usually a volunteer, and one mistake could cause mass panic. Ring the death bell when you meant the dinner bell, you'd never live it down. These bells were community lifelines, the original emergency broadcast system, controlling everything from your sleep schedule to your survival. Feature 14. Traveling medicine shows with permanent stages. Every town had a dedicated platform or small stage built specifically for medicine shows. These weren't random events. They were scheduled, anticipated, and towns built infrastructure for them. The shows were part carnival, part pharmacy, and complete fraud, but incredible entertainment. A medicine show would roll into town with a wagon full of miracle cures. The showman would perform magic tricks, musical numbers, comedy routines. Then came the pitch. This elixir cures everything from baldness to tuberculosis. People knew it was mostly alcohol and sugar water. They didn't care. The show was worth the price of the useless medicine. It was live entertainment in a world with no movies, no radio, no television. Feature 15. Designated hanging trees. This is dark, but it's real history. Most towns had a specific tree designated for public executions, usually a large oak or cottonwood at the edge of town, visible but not central. These trees became landmarks with names. Justice Tree, Hangman's Oak. People would give directions using them. 2 miles past Hangman's Oak, turn left at the creek. After a hanging, they'd carve the executed person's name into the bark. The tree became a living record of frontier justice. Eventually, most of these trees died from the damage. The weight of bodies, the rope cuts, the carvings, the trees couldn't survive what was done to them. Modern towns have removed nearly all of them, but old photographs show these massive, scarred giants that stood witness to brutal public executions that entire communities, including children, would attend. Feature 16. Boot Hills with precise organization. Boot Hill cemeteries weren't chaotic. They had strict organization that revealed everything about frontier values. Section for natural deaths, section for shootings, section for hangings, section for unknowns, and a special section called the line for the truly despised. Rapists, child murderers, men who killed women. The line was separated from the rest of the cemetery by an actual line of stones. Even in death, there was a social hierarchy. Respectable deaths got wooden markers with names. Dishonorable deaths got rocks with numbers. And boot hills were always positioned on hills, hence the name, so that water would drain away from town. It was frontier engineering meeting morbid practicality. Feature 17. General stores with public debt ledgers. No credit cards, no receipts, just a massive ledger book where the storekeeper wrote down everything you bought on credit. These books were kept behind the counter, and they recorded your entire financial life. Everyone in town knew if you were behind on payments because the storekeeper would gossip about it. Some stores would display the books openly, shaming bad debtors. Others kept them private but would refuse service if you owed too much. These books were legal documents. Disputes over accounts would go to the town marshal or judge, and the ledger was evidence. Many of these books still exist in museums, and they're fascinating. You can see exactly what people bought, how much they owed, and whose accounts were marked paid in full versus deadbeat. Feature 18. Town marshals' nightly security rounds. Every night, the marshal would walk the entire town, checking every door, looking in windows, talking to night workers. This wasn't paranoia. This was the job. The marshal would try every door on every business, making sure they were locked. Find one unlocked, he'd lock it himself and leave a note for the owner in the morning. He'd peer into saloons, checking for trouble. He'd visit the livery, the hotel, the brothel, making his presence known. This walk took hours, and everyone knew the approximate schedule. Criminals knew when the marshal was on the other side of town, but the marshal knew they knew, so he'd vary his route randomly. It was a nightly chess game played on muddy streets with life or death stakes. Feature 19. Spittoons in every indoor space. Chewing tobacco was universal, and every indoor space had multiple spittoons. The saloon might have 20, the general store had 10. Even churches had spittoons near the back pews. Think about that. You could sit in church, listen to a sermon, and spit tobacco juice into a brass spittoon sitting next to the hymnal. These things were emptied daily, usually by the lowest-ranking employee or a kid hired specifically for this disgusting task. The smell was horrendous. The contents were toxic, but towns without enough spittoons had tobacco spit covering the floors, so the spittoons were the civilized solution. Some were elaborately decorated brass, others were simple tin cans, but every single one was in constant, revolting use. Feature 20. Town wells with rationing systems. Water was precious, and town wells had strict rules. Each household got a certain number of buckets per day based on family size. A family of 4 might get 6 buckets. A bachelor might get 2. The well keeper tracked usage with a tally board that everyone could see. During droughts, rationing became severe. 1 bucket per person. No water for horses except at designated hours. Break the rules, face fines, or worse. Some towns stationed armed guards at wells during water crises. The well keeper was one of the most important and trusted positions in town, making life and death decisions about who got water and how much. Feature 21. Wooden sidewalk covers creating arcades. These weren't simple awnings. They were elaborate wooden structures that extended over the entire boardwalk, creating a covered arcade effect. They protected pedestrians from sun and rain, but they also created problems. Dark, covered boardwalks were perfect for ambushes and robberies. Towns had to install lanterns under the covers, creating the first street lighting in the West. These structures required constant maintenance. Wind would rip them apart. Snow would collapse them. But towns rebuilt them every time because customers wouldn't shop in stores they couldn't reach without getting soaked or sunburned. The covered boardwalks made frontier towns feel almost European, like shopping arcades in Paris, but made of rough pine instead of stone. Feature 22. Legitimized red light districts with color codes. Brothels weren't hidden. They were required by law to advertise clearly. Red curtains, red painted doors, red lanterns. The red light district wasn't slang. It was actual zoning. Towns passed ordinances requiring brothels to mark themselves so respectable women wouldn't accidentally enter, and men couldn't claim they didn't know what kind of establishment they were visiting. The women who worked there were licensed, taxed, and required to have weekly health inspections. The town doctor made rounds. The marshal kept order. It was regulated commerce, treated as a necessary evil. The elaborate red light systems turned these areas into glowing neighborhoods at night that went completely dark at sunrise. It was capitalism making vice official and regulated. Feature 23. Tumbleweed streets by design. You think tumbleweeds rolling through town means it's abandoned? Wrong. Active frontier towns left their main streets unpaved, specifically so tumbleweeds would blow through. Why? Tumbleweeds were the street cleaners. They'd roll through town, picking up debris, animal droppings, and small trash. Then the wind would blow them out the other side. Every few weeks, the town would organize a tumbleweed burn on the outskirts. Everyone would gather, kids would chase the last tumbleweeds, and they'd set the whole pile on fire. It was part celebration, part practical hygiene. Some towns even had ordinances requiring property owners to funnel tumbleweeds toward the main street. It was ecological engineering before anyone called it that. Feature 24. Outdoor privies with social etiquette. Indoor plumbing didn't exist. Everyone used outhouses, and there were complex unwritten rules. The outhouse behind businesses was for customers only. The public outhouse near the town square was first come, first served, but there was a time limit. Take too long, people would bang on the door. Some towns had separate outhouses for men and women, others had single-seaters with waiting lines, and the two-seaters, those were for conversation. People would use them together, chatting about their day. Privacy was a luxury no one could afford. Towns hired workers to move and dig new pits. When old ones filled up, the old pits were marked and avoided. Every town had an informal map of current and former outhouse locations. Feature 25. Rolling stores on circuit routes. Not every feature was fixed in place. Rolling stores were wagons packed with goods that traveled on set routes between small towns. Think of them as the original mobile retailers. They'd arrive every week or two, park in the town square, and open for business. These wagons carried what the general store didn't: luxury items, fresh produce, new fashions, exotic goods. The rolling store's arrival was an event. Kids would run through streets announcing it. People would line up. The merchants running these routes were adventurers, traveling dangerous roads, risking robbery and attack to bring commerce to isolated towns. They knew everyone's names, remembered what you bought last time, and would save items for regular customers. When trains and better roads came, rolling stores vanished completely. 25 features of the Old West that have completely disappeared. Some were ingenious solutions to frontier problems. Others were dark reflections of a brutal time. A few were just plain strange. But together, they created a world that was nothing like the Hollywood version we grew up watching. What strikes me most isn't just that these things vanished. It's that they solved real problems in ways we've forgotten. They managed gun violence through mandatory checks. They built community around shared resources like water troughs and bathhouses. They regulated vice openly instead of pretending it didn't exist. The frontier had to invent society from scratch, and what they created was sometimes smarter than what we have now. So next time you watch a Western, look for what's missing: the gun check station that should be at the edge of town, the town crier who should be making his rounds, the spittoons that should be everywhere. Because the real Wild West wasn't wilder because it was lawless. It was wilder because it had laws and systems we can barely imagine today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into real frontier history, subscribe for more. We've got plenty more historical myths to explore. Drop a comment telling me which of these 25 features surprised you the most. I'll see you in the next one.